Welcome to Basketball Island. That was the craziest NBA trade deadline ever. The Raps, they were active too. I'm not high. New seat in the chair here. Wes, I'm hosting today, but we got special guests. We don't just got Hambone, we got Fab. We got the one and only Jevohn Shepherd in the house. Let's bring it, baby.
We got the show.
Snap it up. Oh, this is going to be a good one. Jevohn, man, we brought you in for a reason. This deadline was absolutely nuts. And let's get right into it. Brandon Ingram, how should the Raptors be feeling about this one? Because that's a big piece to talk about.
Brandon Ingram is everything that the Raptors needed, right?
Wow.
He got it, everything.
Okay.
Wow. Everything. And if they were to do this trade, again, you do it 10 out of 10 times, right? You think about the player that you're getting, a guy that can score the basketball, a guy that can give the ball late in the shot clock, a guy that you can close a game with. The reality is that's not Scotty Barnes' game, right? That's not RJ's game because RJ's a straight line drive to the basket. And for the last 2 months, we've been celebrating him and credit him. Yeah, he's made some improvements, but we've been clapping our hands and patting him on the back and celebrating him for making passes. So clearly, like that skill, that element of talent isn't there with this team yet, right? They all have specific roles that they play and are great in them. They excel in those roles. But I think B.I., he's coming with size, he's coming with skill, he's fluid. And I think the city's just going to love him once they buy into him and get away from all this, he's been injured and he's aging and so forth. Everybody just seems to have an idea of what a rebuild looks like. It's not all the same.
Yeah, that's what it is, right? Like, so to me, this is a gamble on the player.
Yeah.
Masai identified Brandon Ingram and said, this is a guy we think we can get, and he thinks that they can grow in their program. I like the move personally. Now, again, like how he fits, we could talk about that. I have a feeling it might be a little clunky. Like, it's a lot of space being operated by, same amount of people. I would have loved a little more shooting, but I don't think this roster is going to be complete after this. But regardless of all that, this is a move you make. Like, if the Raptors signed Brandon Ingram free agency, we would be praising the Like, we'd be praising it.
What does a deal look like for you? Like what's a reasonable deal for? Is he a $40 million a year player?
So he's expiring $36 million right now.
Yeah.
I feel like something in the ballpark of that makes sense, right? Like if you're giving him a raise on that, probably makes sense. The term is longer, and again, man, like we live in Canada, man. Like taxes are a thing.
Yeah.
You kind of have to pay the Canada tax if you want to get guys. This is a classic pre-agency move. You're trading a first that was pretty late in the draft to get a guy in your program half a season earlier than you normally would in free agency. You get him in there, and like I see a lot of like hysteria about the tank. Like they're still gonna tank.
One has nothing to do with the other.
Yeah, I agree.
One has nothing to do, and he's injured. Yeah. The other thing you mentioned, that late first that everybody's having so much an uproar.
Yeah.
Right, that's a 2026 first, right? And if I ask those same people, what does a draft class look like in 2026? Tell me what you
They don't know. They don't know.
They
don't know.
Right? You don't know.
Yeah.
And you're hinging so much on not only that player is probably in high school right now, right? And you're also hinging a lot on the development of that player. There's another layer to it. What type of hunger is that player gonna have once they've made some money?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And to add more on that, NIL has changed things, right? So that player is actually coming into the NBA with money. And that's not a measurable that any NBA scout can determine. Like, how is this kid going to work once they have money in their pocket? The other question I have with a lot of these, people and internet gurus, whatever the case may be. Blog boys, whatever. Everybody has their lane. We see the game differently. But this Brandon Ingram, he's on an expiring contract.
Come on, man.
Guess what? So was Bruce Brown.
Yeah.
So was Bruce Brown.
But also if your main criticism of the Ingram trade is that he's expiring, you have to think Toronto has, let's be honest here. They've had discussions about whether he's willing to stay here. They're not going into this blindly hoping they can sell Ingram to stay in the next 2 months.
I'm certain when they said advanced talks and negotiations, that's precisely what those advanced talks were.
Of course.
What else could they have been?
He's also said himself, Toronto's one of his favorite NBA cities.
There's a video of that.
It's a great
It's out there. What are we talking about?
Yes,
I
sir.
wonder why. Wonder why. Tell us more. Tell us more, Brandon.
Let me push back a little on this. He obviously comes with some red flags. I think he hasn't been a great defensive player in his career. He's definitely battled injuries throughout his career. Do you like the fit? I mean, you've essentially turned Pascal Siakam into Brandon Ingram.
Well, Brandon-
is
yeah,
is
so-
Pascal Siakam not a better player than Brandon Ingram?
Pascal Siakam into Brandon Ingram, Ochai Agbaji, and Jacoby Walton.
Yes.
Which I think if you look back at that trade on the aggregate, not bad.
Not
I would
bad.
take that. Brandon Ingram is younger than Pascal. Now, to your point, Pascal Siakam is a proven player who's won a title with the Raptors. We obviously enjoyed success in Toronto with Pascal, but that just was not tenable anymore.
So they also, okay, a big part of that too, when Masai mentioned rebuild, is they were going in the direction of Scotty Barnes.
Yeah.
Right? Is Pascal, like to your point, yeah, more proven player, but you don't have a shift, and maybe I'm speaking from being in a number of locker rooms, you can't have a shift in power and shift in voice with both those guys still in the locker room. So the option of going the direction of Scotty Barnes while trying to keep Pascal Siakam was not going to happen.
Because the hierarchy
Right,
changed.
forget that.
The
That's a hierarchy
changed.
change. So
Yeah.
that idea is completely out the window.
I agree. I think the situation became untenable, and we just saw it wasn't working. I think I'm just saying, in a vacuum, who's a better player? If you're comparing them apples to apples,
Sure.
who is a better player? But I agree. There's
I
other
mean,
there's other
Are you
factors.
playing? It depends. Are you playing 1-on-1?
Yeah.
Well, no, we're playing 5-on-5.
If you're tossing up playing ones, then
Well,
you got to go
maybe,
BI.
yeah.
We're talking about 5-on-5 play. I still don't know if I'm going Pascal because it depends on how your team is built.
sure.
It depends on the.
Fab brought up red flags, though, and I think this is a good opportunity to be honest. You were in Asia when the World Cup FIBA was happening. Okay, so that is one of the biggest Brandon Ingram red flags. What happened with him at Team USA? Is that something Raptors fans should be made more aware of as he comes in the door? Do you have any insights on why that was or wasn't a problem for Raptors fans thinking about red flags?
Well, I think that you can't isolate that situation because there was a number of problems for a number of those guys, right? Tyrese Halliburton didn't play his best basketball. Brunson didn't play his best basketball. Jaren Jackson struggled as well. And for Brandon Ingram, I think for a number of those guys, when you're talking about international play, it's completely different than the NBA game.
Different game.
Right? We're talking about the space. There's no spacing, absolutely no spacing at all. And for a guy like BI, he plays out of flow. He needs the basketball in his hands a bit, right? When he gets into the paint and there's a second on international scene, there's a second and third defender. You haven't played that brand of basketball at any point in your life. So it is an adjustment on top of having 11 other, superstar, elite, talented guys, right? And I think you really can't look at that at all. But go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say a good point you made is ball in his hands a lot. So let's talk about the fit with the Raptors now. So another guy who kind of operates in the mid-range, that's where Scotty operates. It got a little crowded with Pascal and Scotty. I think what the Raptors are betting on is, can Darko get the best version of Ingram out? Can he be a little quicker with his decision-making? Is he willing to maybe stretch the floor a little more? These are questions I have, and no one has the answers to them, but this is what I'm spitballing.
So, I agree. I think to me, right now, if you're looking at it in a vacuum, a lot of these guys operate in the same place. Now, I think if we're going to pull out slightly, the most important thing you do this season is you ensure that tank keeps on rolling. Because a lot of how you build this team going forward is going to depend on who you draft. Because if you luck out and get a top 2, top 3 pick, and now all of a sudden you have that guy, Dylan Harper, Cooper Flagg, whomever, knock on wood, VJ Edgecombe, my boy, that plus Scotty, plus Brandon Ingram, I would reevaluate the pieces around those guys.
Well, that's the thing. No, we don't know what the core is going to be. They could trade quickly. They could trade Bear. We don't know if that's going to happen or not. They might look at next year and say, this part doesn't work. So let's pivot off this.
That's why ensuring that you do this tank correctly, which I think they will.
They will.
I'm going to give credit to the Raptors front office here. I don't think they're stupid, man. I think fans can be stupid at times. I think we can be emotional.
We could be
I'm
stupid.
done all the
I
time.
think
can be
a part
done.
of that is they've also brought a championship here, right? And
A little bit of trust.
there's got to be some trust there, and I think our fan base and some of these experts and pundits, whatever the case may be, they've gotten spoiled, right? You completely forgot, because now the same front office, the same organization set a completely new standard, and you're accustomed to that. Winning doesn't happen. Winning is actually the toughest thing to repeat, because now everybody comes in, they want a little more, they think they're the reason why you've won, and you've got to really, get everybody back on the same page. But just coming back to the fit of BI and Scotty, I think there is still a fit, right? Because yes, they operate in the same area. BI is still capable of stretching the floor. Scotty is a mid-range facilitator, right? It's not that Scotty wants to score the basketball, and I think that's why you bring Brandon in. But when Darko likes to play out a lot of these splits, right? This 5-out offense, you get Scotty at the elbow, and let's just say Scotty commands 2 or draws some attention. You kick it out to, the weak side. Now you have a guy playing off of the catch, right? Playing out of closeouts that's comfortable putting the basketball on the floor. RJ's been able to do it, but again, he's a straight line guy. So now you have B.I. catching the basketball, playing off the closeout, but he can also counter the defense, counter that second line of the defense, which is, I think you need a bit of that creativeness.
So let's look at it. Like, let's assume that Brandon Ingram still nursing his injury. The Raptors won't be in any rush to bring him in. My guess is, like, if I had to guess, maybe they wait till post All-Star and then probably sprinkle him in the lineup while trying to lose games. I'm very intrigued to see what the fit looks like.
Sure.
Because, like, right now, if I'm just putting the guys on paper, Jakob Poeltl, not really a stretch 5. Scotty Barnes, showing flashes, shooting the 3. The numbers are down this year. To your point, Ingram also operates in the mid-range. RJ, been pretty good offensively this season. Quickly, who really knows? Been a rough year for him, but theoretically, he's supposed to spread the floor. So, like, if you're looking at those 5 guys right now, just like on paper, I feel like it could be a little clunky. Just based on like how they kind of fit around. I need to see it. I think a lot of us want to see it while losing games.
I
don't
think it's clunkier than an OG, a Pascal, a Scotty.
Oh, there's levels to clunky.
There's different levels of clunky.
That was playing in quicksand.
Right? Yeah.
They were playing in the mud.
But what I do think is it won't be as clunky as you imagine, but it puts some pressure on those guys because the front office is still evaluating.
Yeah.
IQ, you gotta bring your best, right? You gotta take care of your body, right? RJ, you're gonna have to see defense consistently. Scotty, the emotional intelligence, the emotional roller coaster, you can't have it. You can't have as much lows anymore because you are the emotional leader for this team.
Yeah.
Right. So I think this is actually going to bring the most out of everybody. For Brandon Ingram, this is not New Orleans anymore. There's a different level of expectation, but you're also not expected to be the culture guy, setting the culture anymore.
Yeah.
So his responsibilities have shifted, and I think that is great for him. But it also shows a lot of the other young guys like Grady, Abaji, Jacoby Walter. When you guys step on the floor, you have to bring it. You know what? Because if you don't, there's a seat right over here.
Well, also, just him being on the team is going to make the younger guys better through practice.
Oh, yeah.
You're now going against Ingram in practices where, like, you got to defend this guy, every time you're stepping on the floor. Like, you can only get better from that. One other point, the year he was an All-Star, he shot 39% from 3. Mm-hmm. So it's not as if that guy, he can't shoot threes. And,
I know he's been hurt. Like, I get that. But, like, what I saw from him last year in the playoffs against the Thunder, where Lou Dort shut his ass down. But B.I. was hurt. But he came. He showed a little spunk, showed a little bit of heart. Like, he got, like, Lou Dort ate him up in that series. Don't get me wrong. But I kind of liked what I saw and the fact that, like, the dude played hurt. He's a bucket. I'm watching video of that series against the Suns way back when, 3 years ago, where, like, this dude was unstoppable. Like, in the mid-range, he can get shot over anyone, man.
Bro,
like,
nobody gets it.
Talented.
Lou Dort.
Yeah.
Lou Dort eats it.
That's
not like
fair point. If he was healthy,
low-hanging fruit here.
Dort.
All right, low-hanging fruit.
I love Lou.
Dort is just a fire hydrant.
I love
with,
Lou.
Like, what are we
with
gonna
limbs.
do here?
I love Lou. But like,
okay, so the other part is it's probably not going to show up on the advanced analytics or any of the box scores. But Bi has swag.
Does.
Like, he plays with aura. That counts for something, right? You go into the locker room, guys are coming out, and he's on the court. There's a little bit more trust. You feel a little bit better about yourself. The young guys see that he's established himself in this league. Like, it makes you a little bit more comfortable going out there.
Like, just say, man, he's a bucket,
He's a
man.
bucket.
Let's go,
He's a
man.
bucket.
He's a bucket.
Like, what I love is, like, he's one of those guys that he can consistently get you high degree difficulty shots.
yeah.
Whereas, like, very few guys right now on the Raps can arguably do that. Like, I always joke about one-on-one tournament right now with the current roster. Raptors, they nominate their best player. They probably finish 29th,
and
maybe 30th.
It's
right,
not
in
a
that
knock
tournament.
at anybody. It's not a knock at anybody. It's just guys have their strengths and they're hired to do that. But how many times have we seen this season where late in the shot clock, you're tossing the ball to RJ
A lot of grenades getting handed
Scott,
out.
and
Potato.
you know exactly if we are sitting on the sideline and know exactly what's going to happen. Imagine the opposing assistant coaches, how many times they've scouted this, right? So now you can toss it to a guy that can do a little bit more.
I think overall for me, it's a calculated risk by Raps management. I think you're getting a guy who should be entering his prime, And you're betting on, can our training staff, can our coaches work with him to get the best version of himself? Does he want to be the best version of himself at this point in his career? And that could be a yes.
Let's pull out here, man. So the trade itself, I think, was a good move just because you're getting an asset in your program early. Now, it's a big, big gamble on the player. I'm of the belief that this will not affect this year's tank because I think that's by far the most important
I agree.
thing.
I don't think management's stupid.
You made a good point, and we got to put some trust in Alex McKechnie too because he held
point.
he held Kawhi together with pins and needles.
Yeah.
Right.
Duct tape.
Duct tape.
Yeah.
Right. And we're talking about BI here. He hasn't had any major injuries.
Yeah,
man.
This is just gonna be like load management, stress management on the body.
There's no rush to bring him back because, again, the focal point for this season should be to ensure that you keep a high pick.
It also helps. His role is gonna be different. Hey Bi. We're hiring you. Can you just get us a couple buckets now and then?
Yeah.
That's all we need from you. That's your job.
He's not being asked to be the leader of the team.
Look,
They're not asking him to be a superstar.
Stressed.
Yeah.
There's no stress on the
Yeah.
body. Go home and rest. You need a couple bucks. Okay, I got you, Masai. I got you,
Perfect
Bob.
segue because one of the questions that everybody's asking is, okay, we get the talent. What does this trade do for the Raptors' general direction moving forward? And so, we talk about everything you guys have just mentioned, talented player, fit stuff, but is it going to impact the tank? And if not, how are the Raptors going to manage this going into the seasons to come?
Raptors need to operate in the shadows. Even if BI is healthy, you sprinkle him in for a few games post All-Star to see what you got, right? You want to test the chemistry. Like, I'm worried about the Raptors' schedule down the stretch. That is easy. Come from March to April, that is an easy schedule. 10 of your 19 games are against other teams that you're tanking against. So those are must-lose games as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, they're not going to be easy to lose, man. Those are going to be tough to
No,
lose.
they need to operate in the shadows,
They're gonna
man.
March is a fool's gold month too,
Dude.
right? Where you talk yourself into things that aren't real. Where
Silly
you're like,
season.
yeah, everyone kind of didn't give a crap at that point in the season.
I want Raptors practices to be electric. I don't want to see that on the court. You know what I'm saying? I want these guys to I want BI to get healthy. I want all of them to play, but you're going to have to strategically sit dudes, but within the confines of the team, in practice, in film. These guys, bonding, getting chemistry off the court. That needs to be elevated.
So you're just gonna say tank that loud? Like you're not even gonna try and?
Yeah, what do I care?
Yeah, you're not gonna try.
Bro,
Okay, so-
You want to go the other way.
No.
Welcome to Basketball Island, where we tell the truth,
Yeah,
man.
obviously
you gotta tank. You
it's
gotta
gonna be an ethical tank. But I think at the end of the day, what you get with this roster now.
Scared you, eh?
No. What you get with this roster.
You said it.
What you get with this roster is you've now armed yourself going into one. You're going to get some time to evaluate these guys, and I think you're probably going to play them in pairs. But you also get a roster of guys that other teams now desire, like players that other teams desire, right? So there's a difference when the front office is going into trade deadlines in the summer, leading into the draft, and you don't have as many movable pieces that other teams want and other teams can use that can change, move the needle for other teams. Now, if you say at the end of June, at the end of April, hey, 1, 2, 3 of these pieces, they're no longer in our future. Guess what? You can now yield a first for them, right? It's different. The reality is Bruce didn't get you much, right? As much as...
And the Pelicans couldn't trade him either. He's just now going to expire or get bought out. This is a better situation than that.
The positive is winning helps your assets, right? When you're the worst team in the league, everyone looks at your assets and says, well, I mean, they're not even that good. Why are you even last?
I think now you have two handfuls of assets that other teams can look at and say, okay, I may need this. I may want this. The reality is, with the second apron and stuff, teams are also aware that you have to build organically now. So they're not as inclined to just hand over firsts unless you have studs. And we've seen that in the last 2 year and a half, 2 years. We've seen that. Now you're in a different position. One, you can either evaluate working with these guys together, or two, packaging these guys to try and get yourself more assets.
Yeah. And to your point, your question was the next coming seasons. My personal opinion, they're going to try to get the stud in the draft this year. And then I think it's trying to win. I don't think there's any more of this going forward after this year. They brought in Ingram for a reason. It's a core that right now is at least getting to the age where these guys can all start trying to compete. And I think if you get a very good pick, the bench is now looking a little bit better. You got Grady, sorry, Davion, you didn't make the cut.
Oh,
but sorry, you won't be part of
we gotta go there.
Hold on.
We gotta go there.
I mean,
we gotta go there.
the way Jamal Shed is looking.
I love Davion.
But
Enjoy that heat culture, bro. Snort up all that heat culture, baby.
it's good fit there.
Great fit.
But I think next year is a year where you're like, can you fight for top 6? Is that maybe a realistic objective? I think that's where they think they're going to be.
100%. Raptors management is on record saying that this is a future play. I'm not going to mince words. Everything hinges on this upcoming draft pick.
Correct.
Of course.
Everything.
Of course.
BI is nice. He's never really been on a winning team.
No.
Right? Like a team that has sustained winnings.
That
Never got
Phoenix
past the
series,
first
though,
round.
bro. That Phoenix series
Love
from
that
2
Phoenix
years ago,
series.
man. Let's go.
Love that Phoenix series. To me, everything, the future, I don't know if I sound very like hyperbolic here, but
You're grandstanding.
the future of this franchise depends on how well they tank this season. And I think management is not going to be dumb about it. They're
So
just not.
So to put that in short, you acquire BI, your floor has gotten higher.
Yes.
You draft right, your ceiling
For sure.
now goes
100%.
much higher.
100%. And
And-
it's because of guys like BI who can potentially, like, if you come out of the with Cooper Flag somehow.
And let's just
The
stop
lottery
that.
ball.
man. Let's just stop that.
Let's not
They're
even
not.
get
Edge
into it.
comb, a top 5 pick, all right?
I-
But like I'm saying, you put yourself in a position
You
to
almost
get there.
you can't miss in the top
You
5.
can
This year's
which
top
is-
5 you
which is a
can't
very
miss.
comforting thing, but
Yeah.
you need to make
Top
sure
6 maybe.
that you're in that top 5, that you're in that top 6.
And there's going to be decisions. So say you end up at 2 and it's Dylan Harper. All of a sudden you're looking at quickly and you're like, well,
You have
we
to.
kind of have to pivot off of this, right?
You
So
have to.
the draft, I agree, is going to determine a lot of where this team is going in the near future.
And then that's your point. The future hinges on that. And then, yeah, you are trying to win games as soon and as early as next season.
Yep. The one thing that I'll say that Jevohn I know has said in the past, and it's good to point out, the tank this year doesn't depend on the players. The players have proven they're
Yes.
too good to tank. You can't ask the players to not play their best and then lose games intentionally. This is on management.
Yes.
Management has to be very deliberate, unethical about how they're getting people out
shadows,
there.
baby.
Okay, that's the only way you thread the needle because it's not on the players.
Say the words, man.
I'm not saying it. I'm not doing it. I'm not going down that road with you. But right where the Raptors have been fortunate is they're able to establish their guy earlier than a lot of teams that are tanking. Right? You look at some of the. Let's put Washington into the equation. Right? Who are they building with?
Sark,
put-
Harrington. Yeah. No one likes
You don't
Scotty
know.
Barnes, yeah.
Like Portland, who are they building with? You
I
still
don't know. Don't ask me what Portland's doing.
Right?
Yeah, we don't know about Portland. We
I don't know.
we don't
Portland,
We don't know. Like, so you think
Hottest
about
team in the league.
Rough example.
think about some of those teams that are in the same rebuilding phase. They haven't established their guy yet.
They don't have a Scotty Barnes.
So
They
hold
don't
on.
have a Scott. So I think the good thing here is, to your point, the turnaround and the focus on winning, that is going to be expedited, right? And the stretch of games this month where the Raptors won, that already tells you, okay, we have something that we can work with, right? And start to plug the pieces in and around it. So it expedites everything for the Toronto Raptors.
Are you telling me you don't believe in a big 3 of Marcus Smart, Chris Middleton, and Jordan Poole in Washington?
Classic.
I mean,
Got to it.
I mean that.
Listen,
that's
put it this
that's
way.
a special
If this-
group.
This is when I look at
Got 'em.
Washington over
like
the last
Marcus Smart.
decade, I'm trying to figure out what are you doing?
No,
Right?
that's a
Like
great
this,
point.
and to me, I'm like, you guys need to be
No,
relegated.
what
now.
what they're doing now.
They got to be ready.
What
They're
they're
actually
doing-
starting to bring in
No,
some picks.
What they're doing
but
now is what is necessary. Now, obviously, it's probably a very sad situation in the district right now. I assume those people covering the team, the people within the team, the fans watching aren't really happy, but they're doing what needs to be done. I think the fact that the Raptors have the ability here to do a quick 1-year flip.
a stealth rebuild, as
Yeah,
you like to say.
It's not the Raptors' fault for all those guys getting hurt this year.
Hold on, though. Hold
But
on.
there was a mandate to be.
But
a-
I'm sorry to go back on this. I don't know what people wanted.
Yeah,
Right,
I mean-
because they were buyers, at this deadline. It's like, what did you want? Because Masai said rebuild or development, you wanted them to try and stockpile firsts, like
Seconds,
OKC,
yeah.
and seconds. They're not coming. Like,
can't
do
it's
that.
a different NBA. Like, it's a different time. It's
Yeah.
a different.
it's a perfect segue to the conversation because everybody out there who's not happy is they're saying, "Oh, the Raps are too impatient." They said on record, "This is a rebuild." So, are the Raptors still in a rebuild? Where are they at?
Yeah, I think they are in. If you make a trade for BI and you're able to tank for a good pick in this draft, I think the rebuild However, like they don't all come the same way. They don't look the same, right? Like we talked about this. All rebuilds do not look the same. So to me, this is more of a retool. This is a quick fix. If you are able to get this pick, and I'm going to keep stressing this out, man. You get the top pick. This rebuild is accelerated, and then next season you are trying to win games.
I do just want to point out that this team might get expensive soon. These guys,
Sure.
once you sign Ingram, like are you going into luxury tax
It's a good
for this
problem
team?
to have, though. That's a good problem to
But
have.
is this team worth spending that money on?
A lot of dudes are on their second contracts. So, it's funny that the word rebuild was used. Again, that's why the definition should not be taken.
Yeah, so literal.
Literal, exactly.
Like, rebuild doesn't mean I'm tearing down the walls in this.
You're just changing the vanity in the washroom
Just
right
vanity,
now, right?
It just means we're going to experiment with a couple things and see what works. It does not mean we're tearing down every wall to bare bones. Absolutely not.
Not redoing the staircase.
No.
Dude, look to the Tampa season. Same happened, man. Like they had an
Guys,
unfortunate. Yeah, I know. I know. They had an unfortunate series of events in Tampa that led them to play in Tampa, and they had a bad year, and they drafted Scotty Barnes, right? And then they win 48 games the next season. Then they win 41, and then things fall apart. A lot of the older guys move. You can make the argument management should have traded them earlier. That's all in the past.
Well, like this is the reason why I bring it up, because you're seeing in the ether, a lot of people are saying like, hey, Raps are way too impatient with this move. What are they doing? That's part of the dialogue out there right now.
Yeah,
Do you think the Raps were impatient here?
I think some of the people that are saying they're impatient are a bit ignorant to the situation, right? You have your star, right? And when you're talking about impatience, you can lose your star if you're waiting 2, 3, 4 years and piling up these losses. Then you no longer have a Scotty Barnes. Then what? What happens to that patience?
I think you're absolutely right, because that starts weighing on a star, and that's when rumblings start about this guy's unhappy, this guy wants to move on. And I think either way, whether you're being patient or whatever like length of time you're looking at, you always have to be opportunistic with trying to acquire talent. I think that's what the Raptors think they have done here, and whether it works out, we will see. But you can't deny that he's a talented player, and ultimately the cost was not that high.
No.
I think patience is also being patient for us to land the right players. We can't ignore the fact that Toronto's also not a landing spot for free agents.
No, they don't sign anybody. Nobody's coming here.
So and the reality is that's not solely on the front office. That is also a lot of these players are just unaware of Toronto. You know what? And again, I've had a lot of teammates that have played, and they look at Toronto as, okay, just Canada. It's cold. It's do you guys live in igloos? There's still that ignorance to it.
I know.
It's slowly changed, but that's not entirely on front office, right? When guys get here, they fall in love with the city.
Yeah.
And you got to get them here first. So,
Agreed.
they have to do their job, their due diligence, but also as a front office, you got to give them some grace, because the best way you're going to get, players here is through trades and taking swings at guys at BI. You took a swing at Kawhi, and look what happened.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not we're not comparing apples to apples here, but in terms of getting talent in the door, it's by draft and by trade.
What's the last good free agent the Raptors signed?
Heidu Turkoglu.
Damari Carroll?
Good free agent.
Like,
Jason Capono, man.
Yeah.
Brian Colangelo was
what-
at his door
What are
first
we
thing in the
talk-
morning.
What are we talking about here, man? I feel like Toronto kind of has to operate the same way that like an OKC or San Antonio, but like what those guys got were like generational players that help attract players. You know what I'm saying? Like Raptors are just they weren't born on third base like the Lakers were. It's just not, or Miami. Like
Yeah,
we
shout out.
just ain't there, man. Like so to your point, I think Fab made a great point. Like, yeah, what if Scotty, like you're tanking, you're just hoarding picks, and Scotty's looking around and be like, I want to win.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
I also got to go back to Scotty's draft year. A lot of these same people weren't really a fan of the Scotty pick.
Yeah, they want Suggs.
I don't think I've heard many apologies either.
No.
And he did win Rookie of the Year. He's been an All-Star. Like, I don't think I've heard those.
He almost
names.
got a triple double. Did he get a triple double in his first playoff game?
Yeah,
It's like he's a good player. Now is he the alpha number one? I think that remains to be seen. I think
that's
getting
not
buckets
his
late.
responsibility though.
No.
He is what he is, and his role is to grow, especially emotionally as a leader. then the front office and the coaching staff are to put him in a position to be successful, use his strengths, but also the right pieces around.
And you have to complement him the right way, just like every other guy has to be. You have to build a team that complements each other, and hopefully that's where they're headed.
Beating a dead horse,
Yeah.
man. That's why
Yeah.
this draft's
Yeah.
so important. And like the Raptors front office, man, you recall a day where they tried to hoard every single 6'9" guy?
Well, it's back, man.
It's coming
Vision
back.
6'9" is back.
And if you draft high, then yeah, you can draft another dude, and then maybe that guy is the alpha number one. Because this draft is just that. It is loaded at the top. You need to hoard these guys, and as history would dictate in the NBA, these alpha wings, they win you titles.
Well, look, in the aggregate of all of it, Siakam was the piece that became Bruce Brown, what it is now. And at the end of the day, you got Brandon Ingram, you got Ochai. Who's the third player I'm
Kobe
missing?
Walter.
Thank you very much. All right. So when you add it all up, given what the situation was with Siakam, can't really complain too much about where we're at. And, you know, even then, the future, it's still, at least you're not left with nothing, which was a possibility if Bruce Brown here at the deadline could have ended up for scraps.
If the
Yeah,
Raptors didn't trade Bruce Brown, we'd be on this pod yelling malpractice.
Of course we would, because it would have been a failure.
It would have been
If
a
you got
failure.
if you got nothing for Bruce Brown, that's an F.
Like the Pelicans got nothing for Bruce Brown. They could have rerouted him, and they did not.
We forget, okay? We always say we play, you know, kind of love chair. Okay, we play couch GM. We play
Love chair.
Yeah, we love seat GM. We all think we know what's out there, what you can negotiate. At the end of the day, Masai in the front office, they went and they scoured and they found what they got. This is the best offer that was on the table, and I think all of us agree this was a good move for the future of the Raps. So let's see if they can thread the needle. But that about seems like a wrap for this episode of Basketball Island. Big shout out. Jevohn Shepherd coming in,
the show.
holding it down for us. So as always, you know, all right, if you guys want
All right,
Jevohn
all right,
Shepherd
take it
back
easy.
on the show, you know what you guys got to do. You got to like, you got to subscribe, you got to hit us up in the comments. Find us here on YouTube as you do, or wherever you get your podcasts, like Apple, Spotify, wherever it is. Thanks for tuning in.
Tank.